Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield. Just to follow up on the affordable housing question and why there's been no presentations, we haven't been in litigation for 10 years. I think the question was more to that, why hasn't anything been, talked to us about in 10 years? And I've said here before, I think one of the problems we're running into right now is that we haven't been planning all along. I also have a question on something that was on the agenda for tonight with the Affordable Housing Administrative Services renewing the contract. What did they do in 2018 on affordable housing for us?
What function do they play?
Yeah, what did they actually do? Yeah.
Donna manages that. Do you have the answer? You know the answer?
I mean, they serve as the consultant that administers the affordable housing program in town. So if people are on the affordable housing list, they apply and they manage that and various other aspects of the affordable housing that is in Holmdel.
So are they here to advise us on reaching our goals, or
No,
more to help?
no, that's just administration of current affordable housing.
I think it's more management of the existing ones that are
Exactly.
in place. Someone moves out, people that come in have to be qualified, or they couldn't move in or buy the unit or rent or whatever the situation is.
Okay. Just want to go over some of the news releases that have come out recently. JCP&L, quote by you, Mayor, you seem very happy with the program. I think the night of the hearing there were some excellent questions by residents, especially some stellar questions by the head of RAGE on the financing of this and the downside to what could be a financial burden to residents for having to double pay maybe on maintenance costs that should have been going on all along. So I just wish, as our representatives, you would stand up and represent us, especially when it's coming to our money. I don't think everything has to be, oh, it's great, it's great. I think some of the technology is great, yeah, but I think there were definitely some great questions raised that you should be looking into and working on our behalf for. As the fire safety study, I don't know if anybody looked at a prior report. Dr. Brandt did a prior analysis in Holmdel many years ago. Can no more be found in the clerk's office. So I don't know, you guys have certainly been living here longer than me. If anybody has a copy of that, that should have been considered before we had to go do another study. We have more people, more houses now, so I don't think it would be a big surprise where this year will be heading as far as what our needs are. Again, I also think that this got done awfully quickly, and we've been having a fire issue for a long time. The bell's going off, but I kept track of my time, so it's not 3 minutes yet. Anybody recognize what this number is? $406,800. Doesn't look familiar to anyone? I found out how much the Library Foundation took in 2017. It's posted by a group that pulls numbers from the IRS, and that's the amount. So it's gross income in 2017. I don't know what expenses they had. I've been asking to find out here. Despite the fact I'm asking, none of you seem to be getting information back to us.
We've had this conversation before. I know you're asking about it. The foundation, we've made it very clear numerous times, it has no relation to the township. It's a separate 501c3.
Numerous times our Township Committee is telling us the library is built at no expense, so I'm trying to find out how is that happening. Forget the foundation. I'm telling you where you can go find 6 figures. You don't want to know about it. And by the way, on the IRS paperwork, in our news release, Mayor, it did say to the residents to contact the foundation. No contact information is provided. On the website, pulled from the IRS information, that is like a watchdog of nonprofit groups. The address is 22 Grandview Drive. I have asked you before for this information. You don't want to come back and give it to the residents again. You represent us with respect to the library. Look, I'm giving you the information.
Can I just clarify
so
for everyone's benefit, because you're kind of riffing there.
Yeah.
The Township Committee has nothing to do with the Library Foundation. It's an independent 501c3.
Gotcha.
And so you're entitled, you have the First Amendment right to say what you want to say, but the bottom line is you're asking the wrong venue.
You're protecting them, I get that, okay? Where's the $1 million coming from for the library?
Barbara, isn't your time up now?
It's not up. No, I'm asking that's my question. That's my last question.
But just so I understand,
Where is the money coming from?
Let's say it was 200 grand or 300 grand, like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah, I am not concerned about the exact number from the foundation, But we were promised a free library. We've seen nothing showing where this money is coming from. That means you've promised in your campaign pieces time and time again a free library, yet everything we're seeing shows we're going to be paying for this. I've asked if you had any plans currently pending to raise money, and I was told no. So everything you're putting out to this in writing to our residents has been a lie. There is not $1 million there to pay for this library.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public here to speak? Ralph?
Good evening, Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Just pleased to hear what I'll call the beginning of the discussion about recreation.
Into the mic.
Take it up. My first question with regard to that, will the presentation as it was made tonight, the slides, as general as they are, be made available? Could they be posted on the township
Yes.
website? Where can this appear?
We'll post it on the website for you tomorrow.
Okay.
Chris, you got that? Thank you.
Then, just the following questions, I'll let you answer them in whatever sequence or comments as you wish. With regard to the presentation, my first question that came to me when I started listening to what you were saying is, what were you asked to do? That got answered when you answered Leah Shave's questions. I would think something like that should be at the beginning of the presentation, is to say, what questions were you asked? Then, since one question that you were asked, which you did not comment on at all, is you did say at the beginning you thought Phillips Park was the most appropriate site. It would be helpful for the residents to have some idea why you felt that way and what negatives there were with regard to the other sites. And lastly, you said absolutely nothing about costs. I'm not an expert on costs. Money does matter to people. Taxes do matter to people. Is this a $1 million project? A $5 million project? A $50 million project? I think that needs to be considered when you look at what you possibly want to do.
Thank you, Ralph.
I'll leave you to answer any of that.
Well, we don't have a plan yet that we know we're going to move forward with. I've asked the user groups to give me their feedback, and I expect to have that within the next few weeks. So when we have a final plan, you will definitely hear about a cost analysis because we're going to have to bond for it.
But can
If
we hear,
it actually comes to fruition.
can we hear now about what the alternative sites were considered and why yes or why no? That apparently was part of the study, but we heard nothing about it.
I don't think that they're prepared to talk about the specifics at this point. Thank you, Ralph. Anyone else care to speak? Kathy?
Kathy Weber, 4 Duncan Drive. I have several questions about the recreation study. Ralph touched on a few of them relative to evaluations of the other sites, the swim club in particular and needs there, and obviously this doesn't meet those needs. Also on the agenda tonight, there was a resolution awarding a contract to Traffic Lines, Inc. And I'd like to know what we're doing or looking at relative to improving bike lanes and biking in town. That is a huge area of interest. Recently on the Holmdel Parents Facebook page, there were more comments on people wanting bike lanes and their children being able to bike to schools or parks than anything I've ever seen on that page. And I too would like to know the ballpark cost of said project, and if this would be, since it is township property, available for use for Holmdel groups only. So I'm not sure who best can answer that, Mays or the Township Committee, but those are my questions.
Also, who would use it? It's a township-owned property, it would be township residents.
Okay, so it would not be open to non-Holmdel groups?
I would think not. But non-township groups are allowed to rent facilities from us when they're not being used. So the priority goes to the Holmdel user groups and the residents' children who live here.
Okay.
And then in the case where there's a field available on a certain day and they want to rent it, they can rent it through recreation. So
But because this is not Green Acres property, if I understand correctly, we could charge higher fees for those groups,
That's
correct?
Correct.
Thank you. saying.
What's the county say?
Yeah, but you can't restrict the park. I mean, today, kids from Hazlet, Middletown, Chilton play Phillips Park, play basketball all the time. I mean, parks are parks.
Well, for informal use.
You don't
I'm talking
get like an
about
ID check when you come over home to get a.
I'm not having an individual playing, I'm talking about league use. Okay.
You just read it.
And my other questions?
Thank you.
One was the comparison to the other sites.
Yes, and the needs there. There are clearly needs at the swim club. You know, how are those being addressed?
Right, so we looked at F&F site, too many environmental concerns, no real infrastructure, limited area because of the restrictions, environmental restrictions. We looked at SAT school, again, several conflicts there and issues. This site, the benefits of this site, where it can be basically repurposed is one reason we find it favorable. It's got basically taking the center baseball field and repurposing it to a multi-purpose field that includes baseball. Taking the existing baseball field and just turfing it, that's already there. The facilities are there, lights are there. The lights, because of the surrounding area, which is woods, it doesn't really have a negative impact on residential communities as far as noise and lights. So it seemed to be a more cost-effective solution to get more uses on this site.
And the swim club?
Swim club we looked at in the area of the old tennis courts that are been demolished. There's a potential to fit something there, or there was alternative uses looked at, an indoor facility, things like that, which those are still open. There's a lot of questions that come up with indoor facilities on operations and revenues and all of that.
So we'll hear more on that later.
So possible.
I would hope so.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
And cost, we have no order of magnitude.
No, not yet.
So, okay.
Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Have you been in contact with the powers that be of the Board of Education over this recreation improvement plan? I gather that in the 2020 plan, they're going to do wonderful and glorious things to improve the recreation facilities at the schools, but I would hope that there is some communication between both bodies so that we end up with a variety of improvements rather than everybody getting a lollipop and nobody gets an ice cream bar. And to make sure that the expenditures are such that we don't all go to the poorhouse over a football field rather than a fire department with adequate facilities, which is really more important to most of us than a football field. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your suggestion. We are in touch with the Board of Ed almost daily. Yes.
Regina Crucione, 35 Rambling Brook Drive. Kind of tying into what Jenny is just said. I'm wondering, I don't remember how many fields were supposed to go into the high school as part of the 2020 referendum. Knowing that, however many fields it is, do we need these extra fields? I don't understand. I thought that was going to meet the need.
I don't want to speak for the Board of Ed, but I will tell you that those fields are primarily for the stats and high school teams and those students, and these fields are for our user groups that run programs for children from early pre-K all the way through 8th grade. So.
Okay, so they won't be able to use those
Well,
fields.
not necessarily. There's some overlapping, but generally speaking, I don't believe HYA uses too much of the facilities up at the high school.
Okay.
This is really geared towards the HYAA, the youth football program in town.
Okay,
So.
and keeping in mind costs, we just passed a $40 million referendum, somewhere around that. The idea of adding more to us poor taxpayers to build extra fields is a little ridiculous.
Thank you.
you.
Any other comments from the public? Jay?
Jay Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive. Where's the picture of it? Oh, I'll remember. As my dad would vouch, I'm not much of an athlete, but based on all of the many presentations we've seen on fields and things, a new turf field, lighting, new parking lots, new baseball field, new this, new that, that to me looks, again, based on what I've learned in these other presentations, like about $5 million. I have no idea if that's a reasonable, is that a reasonable ballpark figure?
We have a
Okay, fine. So my point on this is, and Mr. Crowley in the back of the room may be happy to hear this, I am not necessarily against that, okay? What I am against, and I'm gonna say it again, and Mike, you're gonna give me the same line again, is we have what, beyond Bell Works, we have probably one of the biggest things coming down the pike here to affect Holmdel in decades, if not a half a century, and that is the COA resolution. We have the potential for 4-story, 5-story units, a huge impact on the schools, a huge impact on services, and we have no idea what's going on. And the best thing about this is, if you remember from your own parties, and I'm a Republican too, your own party's marketing materials, where they attacked Barbara in one of the last elections, you said, we're not going to put high rises, that's a lie, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. But we have no idea as a population what's going to happen. And it looks like this is just going to be resolved and deal with it without any analysis, any impact on schools, any density dilution potential. So, and Mr. Vespucci, I'm ready for you, but what can you give us as citizens, because I know you're pretty sound in how you're going to look at this, how should we trust what's going to go on in this? And what is the, since this is, let's say, 5 million, maybe we shouldn't move on this till we know exactly how many millions we could spend to reduce the density of these units. And I have one quick follow-up afterwards.
It's not true, your statement. COA's been going on since I was on the committee last time. We are in round 2, and make no mistake about it, thanks to our Democratic colleagues in the state, round 3 is coming around the corner. It hasn't been hit. Round 1 was done. We made changes. We made adjustments. Everybody in the town knows what we did. This, I wasn't on the committee then, but they denied it. I was at a meeting in the back, and they explained all the different sites that they were going to put up for COA. It was public.
No, I was at this meeting, but it's gone dark since then, and we can't ask the questions.
Because now we're in litigation. And once the litigation is done, and hopefully it'll be shortful, because I don't want to hide anything from you guys, then we can seriously talk about where we are and what our plan is. This Township Committee doesn't want to do this. The judiciary doesn't want to do this. We're stuck in, I get 3 minutes to we're stuck into doing it. We're going to make it the least minimum. We've tried everything. We're trying everything. We can't spell it out because we're in litigation. But I promise you, I'm not a dishonest guy. None of us are. When this gets settled soon, then it'll be made public, and everyone can have their comment. But we can't now. We're in litigation with them. We're trying to do the best for the town to limit the impact on our town, and we're fully aware of the school impact, the police impact, the taxes. We were aware of all that. We're doing the best we can to mitigate it, and I assure you, you will know soon.
So this committee's willing to take out their checkbook and spend millions of dollars.
That's a different story now. I was doing COA.
No. To reduce density. Because again,
yes.
if an analysis comes out, for your own benefit, if an analysis comes out after this plan gets released, and your marketing materials where you attacked others for talking about high rises, and it's shown that we could have brought this density down.
That shouldn't be here. Talk about the political data that was thrown out. Whatever we're going to do, no, that was a political mailer that went out that should not be discussed here. This township, no.
But your party denied that was under consideration. We have lost something.
This township will come out with a great recommendation, the best we can. But you gotta all remember, It was due to the non-Republicans in our state legislature. We're forced to do this. So if anyone says, oh, look what they're doing, we are forced. But I call you by your last name is more appropriate. Mr. Ianello.
Yanello with a Y. Someone changed it.
What's the correct?
Yanello with a Y.
Yanello, Mr. Yanello.
Someone changed it. We don't know
This
where.
township is honest.
Yeah.
This township will bring it out. As soon as we're out of litigation, you will hear, and then you all can have your input. We're not hiding anything.
Input, won't it be done?
That's not done. It's where we are made our agreement with them. But then we got to fine tune it. It's got to come back to the full committee for discussion too. So whatever's going on there, it's got to come back here for full discussion. So you're going to hear it, but we can't say anything. We're in litigation.
Okay, the final thing, Mayor Patelli, as you may have heard, or anyone, Mr. Hines, Mr. Nicholas, New Jersey Natural Gas was before the zoning board a week or so ago. They're coming before tomorrow night, and for someone who's followed the company closely for 20 years, I was shocked at their demeanor. They effectively said, this regulator station was in the plan all along, and we didn't mention it before because we likely wouldn't have been able to expand that pipeline in your town. And when Valerie, the head of the zoning board, asked them multiple times, can you give us any other options on the way you could do this? They strongly refused to. So basically, they said to Holmdel, F you, multiple times at that meeting. And so this looks like it's going before the BPU. And since you do read our mailers, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this.
Look forward to it.
I'm sure you do. Where is your stomach in fighting this battle?
Am I?
Yeah, because this is going for unless some miraculous change happens tomorrow night, I can't fathom how the zoning board cannot shoot this down. Again, the company said frig you, basically.
I would agree with that statement that you made, and nobody up here is supportive of seeing that utility get what they're looking for.
But it will cost money to do that.
I understand that.
You do.
I absolutely
And
do.
do you think this
We
could-
budgeted additional legal expense in anticipation of having
But
this
I
issue.
thought I remember it was like $90,000 that was budgeted. That's not going to do it.
How do you know that? Are you an expert on legal?
No, I'm
You don't know
not.
what Mr. Collins works for.
He's gonna take a break.
I hope you're prepared for a lot more. And by the way, as we wrote, there's a hell of a story to tell here. Whether it will matter at the end of the day to the BPU, I don't know. But the way this company's behaved is outrageous.
I agree.
I agree. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public here to speak? Scott?
Short.
Scott Goldstein, 24 East Glen Drive. First, I've done this before, but I'd like to invite Mayor Tom Cortelli to our candidate forum, which is October 15th at the community center. We're just missing one person, and that's you. So we would love to see you there. The second thing I'd like to talk about and comment on is COA. And the issue I have is from everything we've seen and gone to the meetings, you've got attorneys negotiating with other foundations, which are attorneys about the numbers. We need to get outside the box, okay? If at the end of the day, you're sitting there talking about whether we have to build 4 market rates for every one affordable housing, it's an issue of negotiation, which is not gonna work and we're gonna fail, okay? If you read the papers recently in a local towns over here in Shrewsbury or next town over in Little Silver, they've started doing things such as mother-daughter, okay? They've started to allow higher density in the town of Little Silver where they're allowing you to put apartments over the storefronts there, okay? So they get in front of this and coming up with innovative ways to approach the numbers, okay? And I think that if you set up a committee with people here from our community, we could help come up with ideas that you can go in front of the judge and say, Judge, here's the 100 units that we could build, okay? We don't need the Affordable Housing Corporation. We could supply the 100, which is the number, okay? I don't think anybody here in this community has any problem about providing affordable housing. We do have an issue about how this is being handled and negotiated, and from the little we can tell, we're not happy, and we've been kept out of the entire process, okay? Going over to Phillips Park, I was just, Celia was just there, we hosted our annual barbecue, okay? I really have a problem with us looking at multiple millions of dollars when the grills there have holes. I have to cover them over with aluminum foil to use the barbecues, okay? Another example is the tennis club, which has now been demolished, okay? About how we can actually afford to take care of existing infrastructure in recreation when we don't, and then at the same time, look at spending more money, okay? Doesn't really make me very confident about how we manage our money here, about taking care of recreational things that we already have in town, okay? As far as Mazer, I'd like to just point out that Phillips Park is the headwaters of the Ramanesson Brook, okay? The Ramanesson Brook is the primary tributary that feeds Swimming River. That's where 350,000 people get their water from New Jersey American Water, okay? That's our primary source of water. You pollute it up there, it goes all downstream. I don't like synthetic turf. There's just too much controversy out there to do it. I like a few moments, okay? What we found about synthetic turf when we built it 10 years ago over at the school is now something that was supposed to be maintenance-free, we have to redo again for a couple of $1 million. That's just to redo existing infrastructure. That's not changing the base, okay, or the gravel, that's just to redo the top, okay? So the plan that you proposed here, okay, is enormous financially. I'm not gonna speculate because it wouldn't be practical. In addition, I'm kind of scratching my head. Didn't we just build dugouts up there? Okay, don't we have legit fields up there? I like regular grass. Okay, I'm really glad I don't coach these days and I don't have kids out there because I wouldn't want to be putting kids on synthetic turf because it's just too controversial.
Thank you, Scott. Any other comments from the public tonight? Anthony?
Boy, I tell you, I give you guys credit.
Can you put your name and address, please? Sorry.
Yes, Anthony Pesci, 2 Yellowbrook Road. So, like you guys, I sit on a couple of boards in this town. One is the zoning, and I'm also privileged to be an HYAA baseball commissioner, which in today's times really isn't such a popular position. Unlike the gentleman that spoke before me, I love synthetic turf. I think it's the greatest thing, but that's not really why I'm here. He said something very important, and it kind of took me a little bit off of what I originally came up here to talk about. But like many of the gentlemen in the back of the room, and ladies, I don't want to exclude anyone, we have young children that still play sports in this town. And I want to just show you, as a baseball commissioner, that I got a call on Saturday for a field that 7- and 8-year-olds play on. Now that may look like a grass infield, and it is, but I can assure you it's not supposed to be. This was taken from one of our travel coaches. If you were to go to Indian Hill, you'll see that there are 3 fields there, all of which look like this. I don't even have answers for these people. They call me on Saturdays, Sundays, whether it be drainage problems, whether it be problems that exist like this, swarms of bees in the outfield that prohibit you from playing. The conditions are so bad. I actually challenge you to go to any city in New York, any of the fields, and find me a field that's as in poor of a condition as that is. I feel terrible that I see you guys taking darts from these people in the audience time after time. Most of the time I don't come up here and speak. I commend your efforts. I can't tell you how proud I am to see that you guys have gone through the extent of even hiring a firm to do a conceptual the way you did. And I think it's great. I think there's a lot of flaws in putting it at Phillips Park, especially being partial to baseball. It's really the only park that we have that I could say has some potential. I think losing that lower field is going to be detrimental to the sport in this town. I truly feel that there's other places that we should be considering putting this. And mind you, if for anyone that doesn't know where 2 Yellowbrook Road is, it's the closest house to the high school. So I see the lights, I hear the speakers, I see the traffic, I feel the traffic, and to be quite honest with you, I'd welcome this field, a secondary turf field at Sats, in a heartbeat. Doesn't change where I live or how much I love where I live. Phillips Park If any of you have been there on any busy Saturday, which is 2 baseball fields and those basketball courts, you'll see that it's not conducive to the traffic that you're going to have there with a multi-use field. It's a tough road to get in and out of. Parking is a disaster under normal circumstances. So I would ask you just to reconsider where you're putting it. I think it's a phenomenal idea, and once again, I commend all of you for coming up with it. I just think that we have to reconsider where it is. And I think with a little bit of money in the right places, we could change fields like this in a heartbeat. They just need a little attention. I mean, we're stuck with tryouts this weekend for baseball, that we're trying to promote the sport and get kids to want to play. And this is the field that we're bringing them to. So, with that being said, thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Joe?
Joe Crowley, 15 Ely Road. I also want to thank you, gentlemen, for giving the youth sports fields, I'll say, due consideration. I will also say that I'm not for just spending any amount of money anywhere, anytime. I think the township does need to balance COA, fire and safety, school safety resources, and our fields. So I think to do that, however, we do need to understand better what is possible for youth fields. We got other pictures that Anthony didn't show with our fields underwater, okay, days after it has rained, okay? And certainly turf fields would help that. However, turf fields will not help a night like today when it is raining, okay? I love the idea of a multifunction field. Love the idea of turf and lights for a baseball field. I think we should also have the same thing for a softball field. I do want to point out that if you do this at Phillips Park, which is our primary field, heavily utilize both those fields in the spring, and utilization not quite as heavy in the fall, but still well utilized. And our goal, that field at Indian Hill, we want to move more stuff to Phillips. And what you'd be doing with that plan is taking our primary baseball field and we would be sharing it with multiple sports. So you take something which is dedicated to baseball and heavily used, and you're going to end up reducing the time that we can use it for baseball. And I think there's potential conflicts amongst the sports in the town, and I don't think that in that context is a good solution for any of them. Again, it doesn't sound like we got a lot of information today about what alternatives were considered. I love what I see there. I also think turf, having gone through the rain we have, the springs we have, and everything else, turf would make it much more playable. But taking away a dedicated baseball resource now, we would end up in baseball with less field availability than we have today, all things taken into consideration. So I'd urge you to consider other alternatives as well. Haven't heard much about them or what the other alternatives are, but I'd encourage you to do that. I've also heard people say that baseball is a dying sport. I just want on the record here, we have been plus or minus 10 kids, 300 for rec baseball, plus or minus 10 like the last 5-6 years, and our travel programs have actually doubled in size from 50 to 100. So all in all, we are utilizing baseball in terms of its utilization, and enrollment in the town is growing. And thank you again for all your efforts and for your consideration of this.
Thank you, Joe. Last call, anyone else from the public? Christopher.
I'm Chris Briamonte. I live at 30 Falcons Ridge Circle in Holmdel. Again, I want to reiterate what Anthony and Joe both just said. I have been a softball dad and involved with HYA for years, also basketball for years. And for you to come out with just a conceptual piece in the month of September, I think, when there's an election coming on, Mr. Mayor, I said that is courageous and we appreciate, and we feel that you're really trying to do something for the youth of Holmdel. So first and foremost, I want to say that. Secondly, I do think that the user groups, first time we're kind of seeing this in public, obviously, can get together and talk about what other things might be able to be done if this is the right proposal, or maybe doing some smaller things at Cross Farms in conjunction with this, not turf and lights at Cross Farms.
Okay.
Just a grass infield, access to water where we can wet the dirt, access to electrical outlets where we can plug in a pitching machine. There's things that can be done on a smaller level. And obviously maybe just communicating with the Board of Ed a little bit about the fields that are in good shape that we can do as the user groups. And this is kind of like the spark to get that going. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm sure we'll be back to you, the different heads of the different groups, to say, here's what we think. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you and have